Hi, welcome to a Roboflow training movie. In this training movie, I will show you a new feature called the FallbackCumulusAssetHandlingSet. This is available since Cumulus 11.01. When you use Roboflow or the Cumulus Java classes to catalog a file, then the cataloging process might fail. This is not very common, but it happens. It might fail because the file is corrupt. It might fail because during the cataloging process somebody is tampering with the file, or it's locked, or all kinds of reasons why something could fail during cataloging. Roboflow is able to deal with that. It just fails the file and tries again. If the try again fails again, then it will blacklist the file. That means that this file will no longer be processed. This is very useful. It sends you an email, and then the administrator can act on it, verify the file or remove the file, whatever. If you want more information about blacklisted files, please search on Google, on YouTube for Canto Roboflow blacklist, and you will find a detailed explanation about that. But sometimes it's very important that a record is created even for that corrupted file, or even for that file from which Cumulus is not able to extract the necessary information. For that purpose, we invented the FallbackCumulusAssetHandlingSet. That means that if you add to your workflow, a hot collection workflow, a hot folder work, doesn't matter what workflow, as long as it is a workflow in which you catalog a file, if you add this parameter with exactly this syntax, the FallbackCumulusAssetHandlingSet, well, in that case, if the cataloging fails, then it will look for the stored variable called FallbackCumulusAssetHandlingSet, and if it exists and has a value that is not empty, it will use that asset handling set to catalog again. The advantage of that is that you can, in that fallback asset handling set, disable all filters. So if the filter was the cause for the failure, then it will be able to catalog the file, although not with all the necessary information from the filter, but at least you will have a record pointing to that file. How does it work? Well, what I did is I created a workflow in which I defined a variable called CumulusAssetHandlingSet, which I'm going to use in a catalog instruction. So I'm opening a catalog, cataloging a file, and then closing the catalog. Here I just specify that I use the CumulusAssetHandlingSet, which is the name of this variable, as you can see, CumulusAssetHandlingSet. And if I hadn't defined it here, this is exactly the name of the global CumulusAssetHandlingSet setting. So it would use that one. I created an asset handling set in which I disabled all filters, and I also disabled the fact that it should catalog unknown file formats. That way I know 100% sure that the cataloging process will fail, because if I define here that in my no files accepted that it cannot accept any formats, and I'm telling that if it's not in the list you cannot also assume it's an unknown format that you accept, you can be sure that cataloging with this asset handling set will always fail. This is not something you want to do in a normal situation, but I'm just using this to make sure that I get or force the error. Then my fallback asset handling set, I also have everything here disabled, so none of the filters will try to read the file, but I do accept the catalog unknown formats, which means that I'm not trying to evaluate the file, I'm not trying to get any information out of it. I also disabled all the modules except the ones I really need. So this is on Windows, I need a file system and I need Windows. I also disabled all the metadata processors except the Cumulus application. And so that way it will do the absolute minimum with this file. It will also, this is also an asset handling set that is super fast because it doesn't require any processing. The in another workflow, you could always do post-processing on this if required. So let's see the behavior of the workflow. I can say cancel here, and I'm starting the workflow. There is a file in my drop folder, and if I do a show log, I can see that it says, oop, asset failed, asset module not supported. So it throws an error. It says, I'm failing. For whatever reason, I'm failing. But then it says, okay, I'm failing, but I'm going to retry with the fallback asset handling set called fallback. Whatever you call it, you don't need to call your asset handling set fallback. I just called it that way. And what is important is that your variable under which you store it has exactly that 6. And then what we see is that it has successfully cataloged the file. It still sends an email to the administrator, to the one that is specified in the global parameters as being the one to be notified in case of an error, because there's still an error. But at least now you have a record in the catalog pointing to your file. So that's the different behavior. If you do not specify the fallback, it will end up in your blacklist, and it will be blacklisted and not processed. You will also get a file, but the record is not in Cumulus, so people cannot access it through Cumulus. If we have a look at the record itself, you will notice that it's somewhere, sample catalog, and it was able apparently to create, to pick up the thumbnail, but this thumbnail is not coming from Cumulus reading into the file. This thumbnail is just coming from the icon file on disk, and the same that you see here. Oh yeah, sorry, the file is no longer here, but the same you would see here from this file if you do a details, if you change the view here to icons. And so it's just getting the icon of the file. If there's none, you will just have a default icon or thumbnail of for this record. But in terms of information, it will not have any specific things that might have been inside the files, like IPTC or other information that is gathered by other filters. So that's very simple. This parameter helps you decide if I want, in case of a failure, still to have a record pointing to the file. Well, by defining the fallback Cumulus asset handling set, you can do that. It can be more refined, saying you try to catalog it with this filter enabled. If it fails, you try to catalog it with another filter enabled. And so it can be more refined than just enabling everything or disabling everything. So thank you for joining this training movie, and see you in the next one.